Okay, so these inequalities are two-step inequalities. Now, let me point something out about this problem. There's a couple of things I should point out. One, notice that they have an addition and it looks like a subtraction sign, but really they're using it as a negative. Um, so in middle school, teachers typically, in my experience, teachers will typically write this, and this is okay. You should be okay with it. You should also be okay with the fact that you can rewrite it with just subtraction. Now, that's one thing I want to point out. The other thing I want to point out is this one. So that one is called the coefficient. That's the number written in front of a variable. If the coefficient is 1, usually it's not written. You as a student have to remember that when a coefficient is 1, we just don't write it. We can write it, so it's nothing wrong with it, but just don't expect that it is always written. Okay, so now we got that out the way. It's a two-step inequality. So the goal is to isolate the variable. Now, it's an inequality. The only thing you have to remember that's different from an inequality compared to equations is what you do when you divide or multiply by a negative number. So let's get rid of the 6. Some students will look at that 6 and think that that's a negative 6. That will be incorrect. This negative or minus sign, it affects the variable. So it tells you that P is a negative variable. The 6 is positive, so you always look to the left of a number or a term. So because 6 is positive, you can again either show the result or you can show the work. For this problem, I'll actually go ahead and show the work. So I'm going to subtract 6 from this side, but I have to subtract 6 from that side as well. These cancel out, it's just 0. So I get negative P greater than negative 3. Now, we have a negative in front of the variable. When they want you to solve for the variable, it's understood that this must be a positive. So you can change that to a positive using a couple of different approaches. Let's go ahead and just multiply by a negative 1. So that makes the P become positive. That makes the 3 become positive. But you have to be aware enough to remember that when you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must reverse the inequality sign. So then we get P less than 3, and then this is our answer, and then we're done. Okay, we're trying to get U by itself. Notice that the variable is now on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter from a math perspective. From your perspective as a student, it may matter. So if you feel like you really want to put the variable on the left side and always do that, then rewrite it. But remember that with an inequality, when you do that, you have to also switch the inequality sign. So what I'm saying is if you want to rewrite this as 5u plus 20 and then put 5 over on the right-hand side, that's cool. You can do that. That's okay. Just reverse the inequality sign. If you feel okay with the variable being on the right-hand side, well, then keep the variable on the right-hand side. So from a math perspective, it doesn't matter. Now, let's say you're clear on what the first step is. You know that you got to subtract 20 and you're okay with doing the mental math. So then what you would write is you would write negative 15 greater than or equal to 5u. And in case you're not clear, what I did to go from this line to this line, I just simply subtracted 20 from both sides. So it's not necessary to show that step. I find that middle school teachers tend to want you to show it, but you can not show it, and if they ask you about it, if they ask about it, you can just explain what you did. As you get to more complicated equations, it'll be a great idea to save time and not show that step. So then now we're trying to get U by itself. So you remember that if you have a number and a letter or two letters, variables next to each other, that means multiplication. So the multiplicative inverse would suggest that in order for us to get U by itself, we're going to divide by 5. So we have U on this side and then negative 3 on that side. So the step that I didn't show is divide by 5, divide by 5. So then this is our final answer.